As I said there prior to the break, the world is starting to feel a little bit like Henny Penny. You know that children's book about the sky is falling and no one will help Henny Penny, but they all want fed. And so I think it's a very fitting way to close into our last interview on Sarah's Country for your Monday evening. Of course, she's a weird old world out there. If you've missed the news tonight, you should have seen Joel's face when I told him Kanye West is running for president of the United States of America. And on that note, with good humour, is CEO for Rural Contractors, Roger Parton, who agrees with me, I think, a little bit around this Henny Penny analogy. You must be shaking your head, Roger, at the moment of the situation we've got ourselves into.
Well, a lot of it is to do with COVID. And, you know, in all fairness, that's brought a lot of things into a different perspective from where we've normally been. Each year we've gone through the process of bringing in overseas workers and it's worked fine. This year we have COVID with the unemployed, the large number of unemployed, the controls at the borders. It's a whole new set of problems thrown up. It doesn't remove the problem that we have, but we've got to find solutions around it.
And the problem being that we have so many of our skilled machine operators, migrant workers from parts such as Ireland and the UK, coming here over spring and summer. Now, Roger, we had David Bennett on Sarah's Country last week talking around the minister's understanding of the numbers needed. Results are saying it's more up to 1,000 operators needed. You had an urgent meeting with him last week. What came out of that?
Okay, well, first of all, let me give you the figure. We did a quick survey of our members, and we've established that it's 790 workers required, and there are 86 already in the country who couldn't get home in time. So their visas expire at the end of September. So we'd like to see them extended, and that takes a little bit of pressure off. Does help it. The meeting with the minister was constructive and forthright. We had an exchange of views. We didn't get any resolution. In fact, I didn't expect any resolution. But what we did have afterwards was some fairly lengthy discussions with several officials from MPI. And I went back to see them a week later with the results of our survey. And we're now in the process of finalising the submission to go to the Minister of Immigration to seek, or to which what we want to do is to have those overseas workers that we want to bring in classified as essential workers other, which means they can come in for 6 months meeting certain criteria. Now, the thing is that without them, we've got a real problem trying to do the harvest. And we were considered essential service during the we don't see any of this.
Roger's breaking up a little bit and there is a delay, so hence the long pauses for those of you watching at home. Roger, when you're talking about Essential Services Plus, how is there any way that we can possibly, create quarantine or self-isolation around these guys who are particularly isolated in the role that they do anyway?
Well, when they come across the border, they would have to undergo the 14 days quarantine, and we don't have a problem with that. One query we have raised is whether that 14 days is part of the 6-month period or is additional to the 6-month period. If it's part of the 6-month visa, then I think that's a tad unfair because they obviously can't plough when they're in quarantine. But that's one of the questions we've raised to see what we can find out.
Now, there's been some sectors of the industry, and I note in a business desk report that the asparagus and strawberry growers have used fearmongering to say the food is simply going to rot into the ground if we do not get these essential services here. What sort of significant impact will it have if we have 10% of our required skilled operators physically here in a couple of months' time versus what's required?
Well, you're talking about then a reduction in the ability to conduct the harvest safely of somewhere around about 70 to 80%. We've gone to our colleagues at Federated Farmers and asked them to, if they could quantify what that figure would be in terms of tonnage or dollar value, so we can show the minister that if we don't get these people in, then not only will we not be able to do the harvest, but we won't be able to feed the cattle come winter time, and calving, and there's milk, and there's grain, and there's food. We won't be able to produce much of that, and that's not going to help the economy recover in the way the government wants to. And it's interesting to note that not only have you talked about the berry fruit people, I had a long conversation with an irate kumara grower from Kerry, who gave me chapter and verse on this. And there's a whole lot of other organisations, particularly around primary industries, which have this problem of not being able to get the workers they need in a time-critical period, because you could do it when the crop is ready and the weather is right.
Okay, a couple of questions to close. One is around the industry working together to be able to share seasonal workers pan-sector across these different harvest seasons. My brother-in-law up in the Bay of Plenty was explaining that the kiwi fruit, avocado and blueberry seasons all are at different points in time for that contracting business. Is there an ability for us to share that workload across these required skills?
There is some ability, and we currently have people who may, say, do some harvesting in Southland and then move up to Northland to be able to do the crop up there, or move to the Waikato or wherever. One of the issues, of course, is that the visa that is issued to any overseas workers has the company's name on it. So if you want to go from Fred Smith Contracting in Otago to Bill Brown's Contracting in Waikato, you've got to apply for a new visa and get a new name on it, which doesn't help matter.
And how far are we moved in regards to deeming tractor driving as low skilled?
I don't know whether you saw the TV1 news last night and the program that's being run by SIT in Invercargill, which we're a part of. Those tractors are not low skilled. They are quite sophisticated pieces of machinery. And what we're talking about is the big agricultural machinery, not only the tractors, but all the implements that attach to it that have to be driven safely, efficiently, and productively.
How did the Expo, in your mind, go through Queenstown, picking up some of the people out of the tourism industry that have already got heavy traffic or driving ability?
Well, they had quite a good turnout in Queenstown. I think they had 170 people and probably a similar amount in Te Anau. The course that's being run, there are six-week courses, each of 20 students, and I think they're nearly full if they're not completely full. So we're going to produce 120 agricultural machinery operators out of that training. They're at a low level. They'll be able to use a tractor safely and attach implements and such like. But as somebody said to me, these people are drivers. What we need is operators, because the operators are the people who know how to do the things, how to adjust the cut so the crop production is maximized. And that comes with experience and further training. So we've got the first step in place. We're trying to replicate that in the North Island, and we'll keep working at it.
Thank you so much. We're just having a few technical issues there, but of course, I think we've got a lot of clear messages coming across from very concerned CEO for Rural Contractors, Roger Parton, who has been working very hard in the background for his members, as well as the wider sector, of that flow-on effect that he pointed out there, that if we do not get these essential migrant workers back into the country pre the busy season going into the spring, it's looking very, very dire. And of course, hopefully things are moving fast in the background with some government support to provide some more capability into this. And hey, maybe this disruption with COVID has taught us about how vulnerable our employment structures are in the primary sector, and what we can actually look to do about it. As Roger pointed out, the very valid point around the structure of visas and moving from employer to employer. So maybe some opportunity coming out of that. That would be fantastic.
This is Sarah's Country.